الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. كيف حالكم؟ والله بخير الحمد لله. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, last week in our fiqh we started with the chapter of talaq, or the section of talaq, of divorce. And actually, since last week's fiqh class or fiqh lesson that we had in the masjid, I received so many inquiries via WhatsApp, um, regarding was this done properly? Does this apply? And it actually reminded me of the fact that this is an area that our community is not very familiar with, that people just enact it, or couples have a fight, and then they just sort of say things and do things. And we must know that Allah has given us a very beautiful deen. Things are implemented in a manner which is befitting for a Muslim. That is the importance of this section. So even though I'm sure everyone in this masjid and maybe listening and watching, you have maybe zero intention of applying this, but again, as I mentioned last week, you might find yourself in a position where someone comes to you for advice. And then you need to advise, okay, this is what should occur. This is what, you learned at the masjid, what should occur. So we are looking at the section of talaq. And talaq literally means to divorce. And we did the introduction last week. And before I go into this evening's lesson, I just want to remind everyone that whenever a person has a thought or an intention of divorce, talaq, please let that person go and see an alim. Let him go and see the imam, the maulana, the sheikh, so that they can get advice. Similarly, I would like to say that a parent should not be the one to give the advice for divorce. Because the parent, by default, we take our children's part because we are emotionally connected. So rather let a third party, an alim, say, this is the best thing that should occur, not someone who is connected to the individual that's going through the challenge. So this evening we look at what the Sheikh has written about, and he says, وَالنِّسَاءُ فِيهِ ضَرْبَانِ, that when it comes to the enactment, the issuing of a talaq, a divorce, women will go into two categories. Or in reality, there are two ways in which the talaq can be issued. This is a very important section, very, very important, because we find most mistakes occur here. In reality, on my experience, most mistakes occur here. The author says that a talaq can either be sunnah. Now let's also clarify this. Is issuing a talaq sunnah? No. But the methodology is recommended by the Prophet ﷺ. So for a person who wants to or has to get divorced, there is the one option, in reality the only option, the methodology as recommended to us by the Prophet ﷺ. And then the second is what the author, the Sheikh, has said is the bid'ah talaq. Now bid'ah, we might know, it's not a strange term in our community, means the talaq that is an innovation, but in this context, one that is sinful. So you can either issue a talaq in the method as prescribed by the Prophet ﷺ, or you issue it in which it will be sinful. But now, from a fiqh perspective, the sunnah methodology, of course, you're not getting rewarded for issuing a talaq, right? But you are doing it in the correct manner. The second is what we call the bid'ah, where if you do it in that manner, you can incur sin, but the effect of that divorce will still go through. Meaning the man will be punished for what he did, but the divorce has fallen. It does apply. So we go into that. The sunnah, or the prescribed methodology. Now, please, my dear brothers and sisters, respected viewers and listeners, pay very careful attention to this, because this is where mistake number one occurs in our community. The recommendation in fiqh is that if a lady is to be divorced, she should only be given one talaq, only one utterance, not two, not three, only one. And this must be done in a period when the lady is not menstruating. She is in a clean period. And the husband has not slept with her. So a man may not sleep with his wife when she's, of course, clean, and then decide the next day I'm going to divorce her. No. So the recommendation from the Prophet ﷺ is that the lady must be clean. And what do you think is the wisdom for that, dear brothers and sisters? Why do you think there's hikmah in that? Because when a lady is menstruating, or it is that time of the month, from the phrase that time of the month, it's a time where the men must watch what they say, and so should the ladies, because there's hormonal fluctuations. So in the wisdom of our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the lady should not get the talaq when she's going through a period, because she could maybe be moody. And now she's moody, she says something to the husband and he's moody, now he wants to divorce her. No. So she should be clean, and then also the husband should not have slept with her. Then only one talaq must be issued if the man is going to get divorced. And again, I preface this with stating, please check with your alim. Don't issue it. Phone the sheikh, phone the maulana, phone the imam and say, okay, you know my history, I'd like to issue it now. Okay, if they say yes, okay, fine, you're not angry, you're not doing this with spite, then you may issue it. The bid'ah talaq, the one where the husband will be punished, it still applies, but he will be punished, is if he slept with her and then he issued the talaq. So the talaq, in that instance, still applies, but he incurs a sin for doing so. Or she's on her period. So maybe he never slept with her, but she's menstruating. Or if he gives her more than one talaq. The ulama have written that that is bid'ah in number. And so this is a huge challenge, because when the man is angry, he's so fed up in that moment and so overpowered by shaitan, he now wants to say, I divorce you 10 times, 20 times, because he's so angry. And this goes against the way in which it's supposed to occur. Right? Just on the point of issuing with more than one number, if you say, I talaq you, I talaq you, I talaq you, there are different opinions on what is the effect of that. But the fatwa that we follow in South Africa, for the Hanafi, we accept that three, the utterance of three is three. And in the Shafi'i madhab, we take the fatwa that the utterance of more than one in a single moment would reduce to one. That is the fatwa that is followed predominantly in South Africa. Okay. And also when the lady is pregnant. When the lady is pregnant, it is bid'ah in timing, that a man should not divorce his wife. And you know, wallahi, from my experience, when young couples or man phones me and he says, I want to divorce her, of the questions I pose is she pregnant? And in many instances, she is. And I can understand why, because if a lady is pregnant, she's going through a lot of changes. So she might be irritable, say something, and the husband must have sabr. And therefore it is bid'ah in timing. So as Allah states in the Quran, that if it is time, to divorce your wives, فَطَلِّقُوهُنَّ لِعِدَّتِهِنَّ, that you consider the iddah that they must go through, you consider the implications of the issuance of this. You don't just suddenly do it. One must consider what are the implications. What I want to touch on, and I brought up this ayah last week, where we said that if a talaq is issued, the wife should not be removed from her home unnecessarily. She should remain in her home for multiple reasons. But Allah gives an exception in the ayah. إِلَّا أَيَأْتِينَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ. That the lady should remain in her house except in one situation. If the lady has done what we call here a blatant misconduct. Now what do the fuqaha say that is? If she cheated on the man. So if the lady cheated on her husband, then the husband can say, I want you out of the house. Because that is a blatant disregard of the marriage. And these are the limits set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then I remind everyone again that Allah mentions that if it is that you have to get divorced, فَارِقُهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, then you must please separate from them honorably, in a good manner. Don't do it with ugliness. Get the advice, inshallah. So we conclude and we acknowledge that if a man finds that it is advisable that he has to get divorced, he's advised to get divorced, he should do so in the best way possible, ma'rufan, and he must do it in a time when the lady is clean, she's not menstruating, and he hasn't slept with her, and he will only issue one talaq. And then the lady goes into her iddah, and once the iddah concludes, she finishes thalathat quru, 3 periods. The Shafi'i madhab says that a period, a qar, is a period of cleanliness. And the Hanafi madhab says that a qar is a menstrual period. So for the Shafi'i, the lady's she's given a talaq and she's clean. She will finish 3 clean periods, and upon the 3rd menstrual cycle, she's released from the marriage without it being necessary for the man to issue another talaq. So when she finishes the iddah, she is released. The marriage is over. If the couple wants to get married again, they just need a new nikah contract. Okay, that is our lesson for this evening. Any questions? No questions? Okay, ready for the exam, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Wa sallallahu wa sallam alayhi wa rabbil alamin.